before we go to our last topics. So, in Ayurveda, we have a eightfold framework to decide a balance. What is a balanced diet? So, these are the eight factors. So, you can see that apart from just looking at the nutritional value, apart from looking at the nutritional value of food sources, we also look at various other factors, in their processing, how they are taken, uh, especially individualization, to ensure that the foods really deliver what they are expected to do without causing much harm. So, the first factor that we look at, we call this as prakriti, or the nature of the food, which is its nutritional profile. This is very similar to what we do today. You take a food source, you check what are its ingredients, its carbohydrates, what are the macronutrients, what are the micronutrients. In Ayurveda, we had a different way of looking at it. There are some overlaps and also differences. So here we look at so in Ayurveda, for example, for calories, we had the concept of guru and lakhu. So if a food is guru, which means it is calorie dense, and if it is lakhu, it means it's not calorie dense. And Ayurveda also had a framework of understanding, what we today call as glycemic index, how soon the food will get absorbed. And so a lakhu food will have slightly higher glycemic index. Guru food, even though it may be calorie dense, it will take longer time. So guru means also that which takes longer time to digest and get absorbed. And guru also means that which will increase the weight of your body. So the guru lakhu things are used in both senses. So it creates a kind of quadrant where something may be guru in the sense of increasing weight, but lakhu in the sense of being digested very fast. So this is a very interesting framework that is given. So when you take a food, you have to ask. So guru can mean two things. One is it increases the weight of the body. The other is that it is digested slowly. Now this is important because today when we look at it from modern nutritional point of view, a food that is digested and absorbed fast, especially if it is calorie dense, it is likely to have a high glycemic index. So Ayurveda tells, like for example, diabetic patients, we have to take foods that are lakhu and guru, which means which are not calorie dense, but will also take long time to digest and get absorbed, so that it doesn't suddenly increase the. So many such concepts are there in Ayurveda to assess the properties of food. But what we say is that the nature of food, all food sources are incomplete. I mean, you cannot sustain your nutrition needs by taking only one type of food. So, extreme measures are therefore not recommended in Ayurveda. That is why we don't recommend pure, veganism or pure vegetarianism or pure non-vegetarianism. The nutritional needs can, because you look at individual substances, they have their merits and demerits, deficiencies. So one source of food can never meet all your nutritional requirements. So that is why the next thing comes called Samyoga. In order to make your diet balanced, after understanding each food substance individually and knowing if you are taking rice as your main food, then you have to assess its prakriti and understand what it can give, what it cannot give, and then add other foods to it so that your nutritional requirements are complete. So it's a very logical way of a framework that is given. So you can use these 8 factors on a day-to-day basis. What Ayurveda says, every day when you plan your meal, you must have this idea in your mind. What is your nutritional requirement? Yesterday there were questions also that in many places people eat 5 times a day, and so nutritional requirements are different. So we cannot say that everybody has the same nutritional requirement. Depending on your lifestyle, how energy demanding your lifestyle is, your food requirements will vary. So, depending on how you're going to lead your day, on a day to day basis, your food requirements will also vary. So, once you know what is your requirement, you study each individual food source that is available, and then by combining, you make it more complete. But things don't stop there. Sorry, things don't stop there. The way you process food also modifies its properties. Now, rice, when you make it into puffed rice, it becomes much lighter. In fact, it is an energy drink, puffed rice. Like just like we make popcorn out of corn, we can make yeah, it's called malar in Malayalam. I don't know what is the name in other states. So what we do in Ayurveda is that puffed rice, if you dissolve in water, boil it a little, add a little ginger and a little sugar and salt. It's a very good rehydrating drink, and it's especially good when you have vomiting. It can soothe your stomach and intestines and prevent repeated bouts of vomiting, and it also hydrates your system. It's called as sadhya starpana. When oral rehydration is possible, this is a very good kind of drink. So when rice is converted to puffed form, its properties change. It becomes easy to digest. It gives quick energy, quick glucose to the system. Now, rice also you can cook in different ways. You can make rice gruel, which is very watery, or you can make rice gruel, which is, um, like a porridge. You can make a very sticky type of rice porridge also. It's called vilepi. Then you can make rice after you strain out the water, what we eat regularly. All of these things have different properties and different nutritional profiles. If especially you have a very weak digestion, then rice gruel is much better. It can actually activate your digestive system and it can provide nutrients very quickly. So, when patients are recovering from illnesses or after doing some therapies, that is why in Ayurveda, rice gruel is recommended. So, many ways of processing food. If you fry food, its properties are different. But in Ayurveda, what we say, we call this cooking as mandagni. Mandagni is mild fire. Today, we don't have time. In fact, all fast food has completely changed this process. Very deep, quick cooking of food is creating a lot of harmful chemicals. The food will brown up, and many of the nutrients will be denatured because you are cooking at very high temperatures. And all this food that, in fact, this food, fast food is creating an epidemic. Because when you cook food gently and mildly, what happens, we will see later, a lot of nutrients are actually released from the food. The volatile compounds are released and they are not lost because the heat is not very high. And the food actually becomes very nutrient dense. The components in the food can be better absorbed by your system if you cook it properly. And that is called as samskara or processing. So, not only should you look at the properties of individual food items that you are eating, you must see whether the combination creates a balance of all your nutritional requirements. And then you must make sure you process it in the right way so that all the nutrients are actually absorbed by the system. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense that you are using a very nutritious food source, but your body won't get anything. By the time you cook it, you have destroyed everything. Is that clear? Then comes the quantity. So I find this quite fascinating. It's a very simple, intuitive framework that they have given, but it is kind of timeless. Even today, it is very relevant. If you look at the quantity, there are two things you have to look at. What should be the total quantity of food you are eating, everything together, and what should be the quantity of each ingredient, each component of the food. So how do you, make the ratio? So, Ayurveda strongly recommends that you take proper measures of the food that you eat. And it shouldn't be very instinctive and wild. I mean, eating as much as you feel is a very dangerous thing. So the problem is you might want to take certain things more, and that is how we end up with nutritional challenges, overnutrition or undernutrition. So watchful eating. That is why the matra is given a lot of importance. And then you have to look at two other things, whether that food is suited to the place you are in at that point of time. Now, if you are just transiting through a place temporarily, then you don't have to worry much. If you're going to be in a location for a period of time, then you have to adjust your food according to the place. Today, we are traveling a lot, so you cannot keep shifting your diet every time you move from one place to the other. You can make just some minor adjustments, but big changes are not required. The place where you are generally living, that is the type of food that you must take. And of course, Ayurveda is flexible. See, if your digestion is good, there is one thing Ayurveda, if you're maintaining your system very well, then Ayurveda tells that you have this bonus ability to even digest junk food. So that was our culture. We had our cheating days in our tradition also. So once in a while, we would make, India is one of the best producers of junk food also. Many of our fried items, sweets, these are all today you can classify them under not healthy foods. So there were festival times because it's necessary for the human mind also to 6:35, not 7. No, okay, we'll go. Should we give a break in between? No break. So desha, then kala, the time. According to the time, you have to uh, choose the food. Morning food, afternoon, evening, what you are choosing, according to the season. So this you can um, make a chart, and it is not that you have to do it mechanically. It's in the beginning, if you kind of plan it over a period of time, you will be able to intuitively adjust, and you'll be able to have your food more consciously. Then the most important thing is upayokta, or the individual. Are all these things suited to me? Is it how do you customize it for myself? And then the final things, upayokta vyavastha, that is the rules of eating. What will you eat first? When will you drink your food? So there are many rules, like, for example, annena kuksher dvavamshav. Solid food should fill half your stomach. Panena ekam prapurayed. Liquid food should be 1/4. So there's a lot of question whether you can drink liquids when you are eating, and many people give so much. Ayurveda was very clear that 1/4 of your stomach you can fill with liquids. You should. Otherwise, the solid food will not get digested. Plus, you need liquids actually to swallow the food also. Otherwise, it becomes very difficult. So, taking sip by sip, drinking along with, eating solid food is a method. And vayo sancharanarthaya chadurtham avasheshi. For the movement of air, never eat to a full stomach. You have to leave some space empty so that the food can be churned properly, digested. And so many such rules are there. Ushnamasniyat, snigdhamasniyat. Eat food that is fresh and warm. According to the Bhagavad Gita, if you store food for more than 3 hours, it becomes tamasic. It loses its prana. So you know that this is an interesting concept in Ayurveda. Prana is the life energy, vitality. We cannot scientifically study it at this point of time, but we know, like when you harvest an organ, there is, from a dead body, there is a critical period of time where it is viable for transplantation. After that, that organ will not function even if you transplant it to a living body. So that period of time, when you pluck something from nature, from a living thing, the pranic force remains only for a short period of time. And today, our food is lacking pranic energy because we are storing it. Most of the time, we are eating food that has no prana. And so you do not feel so. So if you change your diet, if you go to a farm where you get fresh food, within a few days, you can find that your mind becomes much more energetic. It is more sattvic, more. Yeah, I'm coming. I will be discussing that. We need all the six tastes. So, yeah. So, this is just the explanation of all those things. So, that is, and this we discussed yesterday. What I want to tell is Ayurvedic idea of the six tastes. So, taste, is we call this today as chemosensorial approach to nutrition and pharmacology. When we did not have laboratories, we couldn't do chemical analysis of substances. We relied a lot on our taste buds to assess the properties of foods. So Ayurveda gives us a table. Depending on the taste of the food that you are eating, you can make a judgment how it's going to impact your body. See, sweet foods will increase kapha and it will reduce vata and pitta. So if you have a kapha decrease, then sweet doesn't mean, today when we say sweet, we are thinking of added sugar. That was not there in the Ayurvedic tradition. We used only natural sugars. And in Ayurveda, mostly jaggery was used. Even white sugar is something that happened later. We had sugar candy. So they were much more natural. They had, apart from sugar, there were other, minerals and other substances also. Yeah, that is the white thing, but it was not chemically refined. It is not chemically refined. So today, when it is chemically refined, it becomes pure, sugar. So there were other ingredients. There would be some minerals and other things which are also beneficial actually. But Ayurveda also says that too much of Madhura will increase kapha. That was a well-known fact for centuries. So we always advise people not to eat too much sugar, if you cannot digest it. Now, one of the things Indian culture, we were using very highly dense sweets, but it was also due to our lifestyle. We needed a lot of glucose in the old lifestyle. You wake up in the morning, you have to draw water from the well, you have to go to the fields. The amount of physical activity that a person engaged in was so high that we needed a lot of madhura. Madhura prayam annam, that was the Ayurvedic concept. But madhura means even rice is madhura, wheat is madhura, they are all madhura. Yeah, so today we can say that what they meant as madhura involves all energy dense foods which nourish your system, which are palatable. Actually, the word madhura swadu means that which is palatable. It does not really mean sugar. It's a very broad concept. So anything that is palatable, like roti, you won't feel that sweetness, but it is palatable. So we have a whole framework of identifying tastes, because when the food comes to your taste bud, there is a response from your system, your muscles, your face, everything. So we used to do exercise, give different people different tastes, and then ask another person to tell what they have tasted, looking at the expression on that face. I was thinking of doing some experiment, but it is too short a course to do that. That will be very interesting. It will sensitize us to these minor differences. So if you put salt in your mouth and then you will make an expression, and actually these expressions are all described in Ayurveda very clearly, so that somebody who looks at your face can tell, oh, you have now tasted salt, or you have tasted sour. If you really give somebody a very strong sour substance, it will create a kind of reaction and expression. It is a psychosomatic reaction. Ayurveda says that has also an impact. And that is why all the six rasas should be there in your food. Nityam shad rasa abhyasa. Swaswadhikyam ritav ritav. Each ritu you will change the dominance, but all have to be actually used to ensure you have complete nutrition. Yeah, because of the Panchabhautik constitution. We have, I didn't go to the Panchama Bhutas, we have this concept of the five Bhutas. So they are Prithvi up Tejas, Vayu, and Akasha. So Prithvi and Up are actually solids and liquids, which are actually condensed form of matter. They are energy, they store energy. Up, Prithvi, and Up is water, Jala, liquid. So what it means is when in the Panchama Bhuta we see actually a framework of continuous transformation of matter and energy. Now, Vayu is the expression of energy, it is very kinetic, and Pitta is the heat which actually converts matter to energy. And then this is called as, a bidirectional movement. Everything in the universe, it is moving from Prithvi. If you keep something, Prithvi will disintegrate. Then because Prithvi means matter compactly packed with strong bonds. So that is how it becomes solid. As the bonds are breaking, it becomes fluid. And then when the energy inside is released, it expresses as Agni. And with that expression of Agni, Vayu creates all the movement. So the idea is that if you don't burn Prithvi and up, you will not get energy. So that is the fuel. So even today we know all these engineering, everything works on this concept that you have matter and then you have modalities to convert it to energy and then you can get work done. So Vayu Akasha is the expression of that active energy. So what they found is that the tastes seem to dominate. Tastes indirectly indicate what is the Baudic composition of a substance. It is there in nature, their nature signals. So they did a lot of observation and found that generally the substances which are having a palatable taste, they are found empirically to be dominant in Prithvi and they are increasing the bulk of the body. Generally, there are exceptions. So rice, wheat, all the kind of nutritious food which will increase the bulk of your body are Prithvi and Up dominant, and they are associated with this taste. That is naturally found that way. So that correlation is there. Even today, you can see most of the foods which are nutritious and which are energy dense, they have a agreeable taste. So it is nature's mechanism to make living beings or living forms get attracted to that kind of food. Now, sour taste will increase pitta also, but it will specify vata. So we have to be very careful about sour foods. The problem is if you eat too much of sour, you will get acidity, you will get burning, inflammation. Now, sorry. Lavana also increases pitta and kapha, and it reduces vata, but lavana or salt is actually very heating. And that is why we can take only a pinch of salt. We cannot even take salt as much as you take. Now, what it causes is both amla and lavana. They see this will increase the bulk of the body, but this lavana and especially lavana will actually increase kapha by causing fluid retention. That is why we say that people who have hypertension, those who are swelling, they should reduce their salt intake because it will increase kapha. And it can also cause inflammation if you take in too much quantity. One of the general advices in Ayurveda, 3 things that you should avoid for regular use. One was pipali. Pipali was a spice, which was used in ancient. It's a good bioavailability enhancer. So if you add it to foods, if you add it to medicine, the chemicals in the medicine will be better absorbed in the system because it has got piperine. But Ayurveda says that you should not use it regularly. Another thing which you should not overuse. Today, modern medicine has also come to that point where we are saying restricted salt intake. So in Charaka Samhita says lavana should not, natam atyupayunchida. Third thing is chara. These are alkaline substances, very strong chemicals which we use for food preservation. So chara should also not be used regularly. But today we are completely getting exposed to charas because in all the foods that we eat, they are added. Chara is a kind of alkaline substance. It's like sodium benzoate. All these things would come under the category of chara. They're very corrosive, strong substances, which when you add in small quantities in the food, it helps in food preservation. but by regular intake into the body, it can do damage. All those things are coming under. Then we have katu or pungent taste. This is very pitta aggravating. It reduces kapha. But according to Ayurveda, so we are not, it is, see, we need another lecture on gunas and Panchma Bhutas to fully understand. I just want to give this as a initial understanding of how by taste you can understand how the food is affecting your system. Especially if you take a lot of spicy, pungent foods, your vata and pitta will get aggravated. So you can have ulcers, you can have acidity, you can develop dryness and vata type of diseases. Now, pitta bitters will also increase vata a lot, but they will pacify pitta and kapha. Kashaya or astringent taste also. So it depends on in what degree. Actually, astringent taste is very good if you want your bowels to become harder. So amla rasa, sour taste will make the bowels loose. So all these rasas together, they balance out each other. So when we make a plate of food, Ayurveda puts all these tastes there in the correct proportion so that they all balance out each other and you have a balanced effect on the tridoshas. All physical meaning of this kapha pitta, like you tell us that this taste will increase this and decrease. Yeah, I know. See, we didn't go deep into the tridosha theory. See, the tridoshas it's a framework to understand how the properties of what makes your body, the structure, keeps changing in response to the environment, the food you eat. So when you say kapha increases, what we mean is certain properties will increase in your system. So kapha it means heaviness, unctuousness. So when you say kapha increases, today we understand cholesterol increases in your system, fat increases in your system. You put on too much of weight. All these things are indicators. So how they understood in ancient times, they looked at properties. So dosha means it's a sequence of properties. So you say that when your muscle becomes very heavy, then you say kapha has increased in the muscle. When the muscle becomes very weak, dry, and atrophied, then we say now vata, it is showing vata property. So vata has increased. If the muscle shows inflammation, severe inflammation, tenderness, then we will say now this is a pitta condition. So an Ayurveda physician, what they created was a universal framework using which when something goes wrong, they can classify it under any of these three categories. So if a liver becomes it's a liver cirrhosis, for example, is when the liver becomes very dry, hard, and fibrosed. Now, when you look at the properties of liver in that condition, for Ayurveda physician, this is an indication of vata increase in the liver. Now, when the liver becomes fatty liver, in that fatty liver state, it is kapha. In the hepatitis stage, when there is inflammation in the liver, it is pitta. So any organ, any condition, most of the time, you can find it fits into any of these three. That is their way of, so that they created a framework where whatever is known today on whatever can happen tomorrow, anything we can predict with this Tridosha framework. So the Ayurvedic idea is that this covers the entire structural properties of the body, and it can predict how this fluctuation happens, because each organ needs to maintain the properties within a particular framework for it to function. Now the heart muscle has certain elasticity, then only it can pump. So in many conditions, heart failure, what happens? The heart muscle becomes rigid. So as it thickens and becomes rigid, it's not able to relax. So what happens? The amount of blood it can receive in the ventricle will become less. And then when it pumps, less blood is actually pumped outside. This leads to fatigue, fear. So the elasticity, so that rigidity is a vata guna. So we say that now the heart muscle vata has increased in the heart muscle. So it is not. Kapha will create No, that vata is not air. That is the main thing. See, vata, as I told you, va gadi ganthane. Vata is we have used a kind of metaphorical representation for vata because vayu is that which makes you move, energy, and that is the reason why we are referring it to us. Panchamabhutas are not the earth, water, fire, or they are symbolic representations of a certain uh, principle. So air, why we are saying air? Because air is dry. Air, if you pour air, if you take a stream of air and put it on a substance, it will become dry and hard. Right? If I make, let me make a small bolus of wheat. I make wheat flour. It's very soft. Now, if I keep it to dry, as air, falls on it, what will happen after a while? It becomes very hard because all the water content is gone. So that is why, for simpler understanding, we say air has increased in it, but it is not like that. It's the properties. The Tridoshas and Panchamuhurta represent the physico-chemical matrix. They are, when you talk about these gunas, we are talking about deviations in physico-chemical properties of the substance. So Ayurveda use the language of the gunas. Now, studying the gunas, that is, we visualize the body as a matrix of a physico-chemical properties which are representing in a continuum. So we talk of heat. Heat is a continuum because on one side we have heat and one side we have cold, and it is open-ended. There is no end. You can think of extreme heat and extreme cold, but what Ayurveda is concerned is the center point. Your body maintains temperature at a particular range without which your physiological functions cannot happen. So if there is a fluctuation in that internal heat beyond a certain level, then your functions will not happen. So there are 20 such gunas which Ayurveda primarily talks about, which means through Ayurvedic medications treatment, we are maintaining this internal matrix, maintaining that in an optimal condition so that all the physico-chemical properties of all your organs are optimal. Today, what happens is when an organ is getting damaged, its structure is changing. When its structure changes, its properties change. And that is what we call as disease. Because physiology means because of a particular structure, a particular organ is functioning in a particular way. So there is a structure function relationship. So when we say Tridosha damage has happened, it means there is such a structural change that is not able to function anymore in the normal way. And that change in the property and function we understand in the framework of the Tridoshas. So these gunas have changed, so inflammation has happened, Vata is degenerative, Kapha is actually proliferative. When things overgrow, then it is a kapha problem. When there is inflammation, then it is a pitta problem. When it's degeneration, it is a vata problem. So that is how they created that framework. And when you look at these rasas and yes, huh? Kashaya is astringent. It is, you see, astringent taste when you put in your mouth, what will happen is your mouth will just dry up. You will feel that as if you're so some like pomegranate, if you take very strong pomegranate juice, after you drink it, you will find everything sticks. Your mouth will just dry up. So one of the main substances which has astringent taste is harad or haritaki, we call it, which is one of the ingredients of triphala. So if you take powder of haritaki and just rub your mouth, after a little while, you won't be able to speak so freely. You will get dry mouth. So Ayurveda gives you clear characteristics of how to identify and differentiate each taste. But the challenge is no substance has a single taste. Many have many tastes. Amla is a good example. It has got sour taste, astringent taste, bitter taste, even a sweet taste, because if you chew amla and then drink water, you will feel the sweetness. Jamun is actually astringent. It is sweet and astringent. So jamun, if you take, you can find again this dryness coming into you. It is recommended for diabetics also because of that reason. No, first thing is in muscle, what we do to reduce kapha, the best way is to do exercise because it will burn and yeah, there are see what we use muscle based things in Ayurveda is a medicine called Gugul. Gugul especially works on kapha and pitta in the muscles. It can reduce excess kapha. It's called Gugulu. But please don't try it yourself. They should be taken under medical supervision. Now, what we discuss here, we have to go a little fast. There are many things to cover. Is a chemosensory approach to food and nutrition. It suggests that taste can reveal certain nutritional properties. So, see, sweet helps us to detect energy rich nutrients. Salt helps us to identify electrolytes. Sour and bitter actually is a warning. Anything very sour or bitter, you have to be careful. It may contain toxins. So, one of the ways to know, you can see most poisons are sour or bitter. Very acidic substances are sour, so they are harmful for your system. Very bitter substances are also toxic and they are harmful for your system. There are new tastes in modern medicine where umami is one taste which enables you to identify amino acids. Then you can also identify fatty acids through your taste. These are new information coming. Maybe with combining all this, we can expand our taste system also in the future. Now, sweetness is sugars and carbohydrates. Saltiness detect and regulate sodium, an essential electrolyte. Sour and bitter, see sourness, acids, bitterness with nitrogen compounds. So today we know there's a lot of correlation. And by carefully following taste through the centuries, humanity has classified foods and understood their nutritional value without chemistry or nutritional science. Now there is a recent taste. I don't know if you have heard about this. Just came few days back. There is a ammonium chloride is giving another distinct taste, and they found that our receptors are responding specifically to ammonium chloride. Probably this has evolved as a way to help, because taste is a protective mechanism. When you taste, we understand something is wrong, and then we are able to avoid it. So that is how now ammonium chloride receptor they have found. The sour receptor itself is responding to ammonium chloride specifically. So according to modern medicine, when there is a taste receptor and there is a stimulation, then only they consider as a taste. Ayurveda classification of taste is not based on taste receptors. It's based on physiological responses and a mental sensation that we get. So that's about diet, which we didn't discuss yesterday. And now I'm going to talk about internal, that's our next topic, is about internal medications. It's also an interesting thing. And I want to, first of all, see, have you heard of 2UU? She got the Nobel Prize for Medicine and Physiology in 2015. So this is I'm narrating this story also to tell what could be the purpose of all of you getting introduced to Ayurveda. 2UU is a good example, a good case study, because she found a traditional medicine. From traditional medicine, she discovered a drug for malaria, which actually saved millions of lives. And what is interesting, when she isolated the ingredients she believed would work, she volunteered also to be the first human, uh, subject. She tested it on herself before giving it to others. So it's a very good example. And then so now what happened was, how did she wanted to do medicine, she couldn't do that. She couldn't become a doctorate or But, she had a passion. She studied pharmacology. But what happened is from 1959 to 1962, she took a course in traditional Chinese medicine, though she was not a medical practitioner. But that actually changed her destiny. That, actually won her a Nobel Prize, which is the first time mainland China anybody is getting a Nobel Prize in medicine. And this is, it's completely changed. Just that exposure to traditional medicine knowledge, maybe a course like this. or but she did a little longer course. And you know what happened? So this led to the discovery artemisinin and later dihydroartemisinin, which was a groundbreaking moment in medical history. So see, what happened was at that time malaria did not have any drugs. So see, scientists had screened over 240,000 compounds without success. And then she went to traditional Chinese medicine. And she's because of her Chinese medicine background, she thought she will like look at Chinese medicine. And she found that there is a plant called Artemisia annua, which seemed to be promising for malaria. But what happened, whenever they extract chemicals from this plant, it is not showing any efficacy. Initially, they were extracting it in boiled water. And finally, in traditional Chinese medicine, there was a narrative saying that this plant, if you want to use it effectively, it should be soaked in cold water and never boiled. So that became the clue for her discovery. So she realized that this is a thermolabile compound. That is what the traditional textbook was talking about. That you have to extract it in cold water. And when she did that, she got this active compound. And that changed the whole history of the world. And so you can see how modern science and traditional medicine, you can get a lot of clues like that. And this discovery led to a Nobel Prize. So that is what we are also talking about introducing IKS. Because who knows, there's so many such discoveries that may be hiding. And some scientist, a traditional practitioner, is just going to put it in water and give. He or she is not going to think about it in a scientific manner. But if science and tradition come together, it may lead to amazing discoveries. So that's why I wanted to say this case. Now, in Ayurveda also you can see Ayurveda made a lot of medicines. I am also not a big fan of Ayurvedic medicines myself. They're nasty, very difficult to drink. If you really hate some persons, you can give them a course of Ayurvedic medicines. And they will never forget it. They're sometimes very nasty. And having to drink them for weeks and months together is unimaginable sometimes. So we are really thinking now how we can modify these dosage forms without losing those principles. See, there was some reason why Ayurveda acharyas also, they were not sadists. They did not really want to torture their patients, but somehow they looked at only the science available at that time. And in those days, most people were also spiritual religious, so they would religiously swallow whatever is administered. But today, it's not possible. I'm sure if all of you were to come to me, you would run away after a couple of consultations saying Ayurveda is good, but just not possible. So what they found, we made medicines in three main ways. One is water extracts, taking the medicine through water medium. Then they found that all the potential components are not coming through water. So they also invented lipid extraction. So extracting through lipid media. And then they also found that alcohol. So these are three things even today used pharmacologically to isolate and separate compounds from herbs. This was discovered in Ayurveda thousands of years. So when you say decoction, lehyam, you don't understand the logic behind it. If you look at Ayurvedic formulations, they are mainly water extracts or lipid extracts or alcohol-based extractions. Because these three solvents have the ability to extract different types of compounds from the herbs and drug sources. Yeah.
One time we say any amount of alcohol is not good.
Yeah.
We should just do this.
Yeah. So that is a problem that I am also I don't have an answer. Ayurveda used to give alcohol based, but they are very mildly fermented drinks, not really strong alcohol. So that was the concept in Ayurveda, that Madhyam and Arishnam are two different things. Madhyam is something which the body, absorbs very quickly, damages, and then, causes what you call as Mada. That is why it is called Madhyam, because it causes intoxication. And Arishnam is something which doesn't cause any of these two problems. It needs to be studied. That is the Ayurvedic concept. So you cannot drink Arishnam and get a intoxication. You will not get intoxicated. So this is a very interesting thing. Nobody would want to brew a Arishnam and drink it, because it will not produce any of those effects of alcohol.
Something like what we've done.
Yeah, it is a little bit more stronger fermentation. We can say mild wines. They are kind of mild wines, not very strong, mild wines. And so the chemicals get extracted in that, and these are mainly used for emergency medicine when you want the chemicals to quickly spread in the body and produce anything. This is also an area where we can do a lot of research, because traditionally Ayurvedic practitioners are simply using it as it is. Where it should be used, what is its advantages. Now, Arishtams, by the way, are not so difficult to take, and if you are used to drinking alcohol, you might even relish, taking a sip of Arishtam once in a while. So water, oil, and alcohol are commonly used solvents. So, for example, water is effective in extracting water-soluble compounds like tannins and flavonoids, while oil can use lipid salt. It will extract lipid salt. So, solubility is a very important thing. Inside our body, also we classify compounds today as hydrophilic, lipophilic, hydrophobic, lipophobic. So they had understood this difference, and that's why I use this. And whereas alcohol, ethanol is more versatile. It can take a lot of polar as well as non-polar compounds. So water is extracting polar compounds, whereas fats will extract non-polar compounds. And alcohol will extract mainly polar and also some non-polar compounds. So you can see that this makes a lot of sense when you say Ayurveda uses these three solvents to make medicines. Basically, all our medicines are categorized in this way. So choice of solvent depends on the desired outcome and the target compounds. And here is a brief framework of the extracts. You have water extracts, then we use incineration. Ash is also produced and made into medicine. Fatty extracts, fermented extracts. Instead of alcoholic extracts, I prefer to call them as fermented extracts. So fermented drinks and food also have their health benefits. So if you can control that fermentation so that it not go into a strong alcoholic hard liquor condition, then maybe it still has medicinal use. So because of this recent, warnings against alcohol, many of us are rethinking and want to reevaluate and bring up some more safety protocols on how to use fermented medications in Ayurveda. So that's something which is going on. I strongly feel that there's a lot to be discovered in Arishtam concept. So we would ferment in two ways. One is make a decoction and ferment it, then it is called Arishtam. And if you make a cold infusion and ferment it without cooking, then it is Asava. So you can see this is quite fascinating that they explore. So if you look at most of the traditional medicines in the world, they have only fresh juice or powder. Most of that is the dosage form. They don't have this variety of dosages. And that shows we tried so many extraction methods. So the next thing is in Ayurveda, what we say, just like in food also, that all drug sources have merits and demerits. So no drug is absolutely safe. And safe use is based on protocol, not on the substance. So, two ways in which we address the safety issue, balancing, is combination and processing. You saw that already in the case of food. So, we never recommend single herb use. And one of the problems today is all herbs are being promoted as single herbs. Ashwagandha, Brahmi, which is not an Ayurvedic way of using, because each of them may have some unwanted effects. Like, even licorice is harmful if you take in large quantities. Licorice will lead to hypokalemia because there is a mineral corticoid in that, and it can cause sudden rise in blood pressure. There is a plant called bala in which there is ephedrine, which is also a steroid, and that can lead to side effects. Bala is a it has its medicinal properties, so all modern medicines also have side effects. They are used with care. So the same caution should be exercised when you are dealing with Ayurvedic herbs also. So this overall notion that because they are herbs they are safe is not true, because herbs contain chemicals, and many of them, actually not one. So Acorus calamus, or vacha it is called, it has got beta azarone, which is a carcinogenic compound. So Ayurveda mentions methods of purification. So one of the method was purifying it before use, processing it, combining it. In that way, we make it. So today, what is happening is, see, modern research, this point is lost. You take Ayurvedic formulation, many ingredients, we reduce it to few, then we break it down to phytochemicals, we fractionate, and then take one compound. So when Rauwolfia serpentina, which was used for blood pressure, was first discovered, we made it into Reserpin, and that showed so many side effects, which was not there in the actual plant. So this is the difference in modern and Ayurvedic drug development. We all begin with single ingredients. In modern medicine, we break it to phytochemicals, fractions, and single molecules. Whereas in Ayurveda, we have simple formulation, complex formulation, super formulation. It's a science of combinatorics. So, I want to show you today, when you combine substances, the combination may produce an effect greater or lesser than the effect produced from the individual properties. So today, the isobologram is a kind of a graph that is used to understand whether when you combine an effect will be minimized or increased. So both have great implications, because when two ingredients are combined together, the bad effect of an ingredient may be amplified or it may be minimized. Now, we have found this sometimes in drug herb interactions also. There is a drug called phenytoin, which is used for epilepsy. When you add Vitex negundo, which is a herb in Ayurveda, it reduces the need for its, the required dosage becomes very minimal. So it is more effective at a lower dose when you add two things together. So actually TB drug rifampicin, if you add piper into it, we can reduce its effective dose. So this way, this is an area for research. We do not know all the things through modern pharmacology, but Ayurveda used this. And here are some examples: curcumin and pepper, which I discussed yesterday. Another thing is, there are two Chinese people have studied more about such combinations. Hydrastis canadensis. You have Chinese people use the leaves and roots together. And now we have found there is a reason, because the flavonoid synergies are present at higher concentration in leaves, while the antimicrobial alkaloid is present in the roots. So when you combine the two, these two chemicals will have a synergistic effect and activate the antimicrobial potential of the. So if you give only the leaves or only the roots, you won't get this effect. If you combine, you will get the effect. Now, licorice and its alkaloids. See, licorice, which means if you take it as a whole, it suppresses angiogenesis, formation of blood vessels, which will have an anti-cancer effect. But if you isolate the chemicals from liquorize and give, it promotes angiogenesis. That's an opposite action. So the part is not behaving like the whole. That is why sometimes we have to use the medicines as a turmeric and ghee. If you add ghee to turmeric, then there is a compound called AR termiron, which becomes bioavailable to the brain. If you take turmeric alone, it will not reach the brain. So licorice and ginseng, when you add licorice and ginseng together, the toxicity of ginseng is very much reduced. So this could be, these things are showing that many of these traditional combinations had particular reasons, though we do not fully understand the chemistry now. And now you can appreciate why in Ayurveda combinations were given so much importance.
Ayurveda, medicines are all herbal.
All herbal, animal, mineral, everything. Ayurveda says anything under the sun is medicine.
Brown rice concept and brown bread and all that. So is that something you will bring or it is
No. Today, see, we have modified food because it's easier to sell, easier to store, and so many of its nutritional properties are gone. So when you remove the bran and the outer covering from the rice, a lot of essential nutrients are eliminated. And also the rice will get absorbed much faster. Its glycemic index will be high, so that there will be sudden spikes in sugar in your system. When you use brown rice or the old method of, because of the bran and the covering, not only there are more nutrients, but it will take longer time to. Another thing is, when you take rice, you must also take a lot of vegetables, because the fiber will allow the food to get slowly absorbed. Again, blood sugar spikes will be less. So if continuous spikes are happening, so refined bread, all these things, this is the problem. Yes.
where they have told about how they have done qualitative and not quantitative?
Yeah, qualitative they did through organoleptic. There are methods which they say they observe actually. So they give, see, one thing is, as far as foods are concerned, we do not know how humanity discovered food. It has happened so many thousands of years ago. Most of the foods were, learned intuitively and by trial and error. Medicines in Ayurveda, we have a whole framework, what I called as a chemosensorial method, where we look at the taste. For poisons, it is not possible. You cannot taste a poison and understand how it works. So they used, one was zoo pharmacognosy. They looked at animal behavior. Today, just as we do animal testing, the Charaka Samhita says administer it to an animal and see what is the effect. So the first toxicity assessment using animal models was described in Ayurveda. Second thing is observing how animals take animal. Today also we do animal studies, right? To understand how preliminarily it is working. So looking at how those observations, they got the primary clues.
Qualitative analysis of disease and other actually
So see, we looked at taste, we looked at, so one is administering it to patients, understanding how they are responding to it. It is centuries of work. That is one. See, in Ayurveda, if you look at a new plant being added, it has taken sometimes 1 century before a new plant is added to the Ayurvedic pharmacopoeia. Because so much of observation, they did not have the kind of technologies that we have today. But I strongly doubt, because none of the technologies available today are enough to study the complexity of Ayurvedic formulations. All that today's technology can do, take a herb, if I know that it is having some anti-cancer experience, what we will do, take it to HPLC, HPTLC, LCMS, break it down, isolate one compound which may have an action, and you get a purified chemical as the drug. There is no way you can study how all these herbs and drugs are interacting together. There is no way. This is an enigma. Even I am surprised as to how our rishis have created complex formulations. Today, maybe we are trying to see if through AI and other tools we can see if there are some patterns on how they combine these things. So, see, for example, how did they know that turmeric and pepper, if you take together, it will improve chemical absorption? There is no clue. There is a knowledge gap. They have not mentioned. Yeah, yeah. So they have described already all these things are there, but they have not described exactly the methodology that they use to identify all this. So they are saying that from the taste we can infer that the drug may have this bhautic constitution. Then you with that you create a hypothesis. Okay, this is madhura, so it may increase. Then I actually they have said uh, you administer it and see what is happening. That is the way they have. And there has been intuition also. Many things are intuitive. As I told you, the orangutan chewing the herbs and healing. What is the science behind it? We do not know. The sparrows picking up the cigarette butts, and so yeah. No, what I'm saying is, see, when what I'm not saying that it's not science in the systematic way we understand it. Because today we need to have a hypothesis for which we should have a kind of background data with on the basis of which you build a hypothesis. Then you have a model to test that hypothesis. You have to generate data, and if the data is supporting your hypothesis, you accept it. Otherwise, you reject it. That is a scientific method. But many things in science also has been discovered by what is called serendipity. The way Alexander Fleming discovered penicillin. Many of the old scientific discoveries were very serendipitous. It did not follow any systematic scientific method. So we in Ayurveda, what we say, the rishis were very observant. They were meditating. They were observing nature. Many things they got clue that way. And then through observations and repeated applications, they systematized it and made it into a knowledge. That is a work of tradition. Modern scientific methods, as we understand today, analysis, data, I didn't find any evidence for that have been used in that sense. Now, I'm also surprised in most of the Ayurvedic medicine, we will add pipali at the end. And today we know it enhances bioavailability. But they had no idea about even the existence of piperin inside that. How did they discover all this? So that is an enigma, and I'm also working on it. I don't know. I really do not know how they found this out. This is a question we most of the time ask while we study Ayurveda. How did they discover the properties of these plants in the way they have described?
The three things here. What is the take of Ayurveda on bioengineered things like broccoli? And number two, neurotoxins like snake venom and all, how do they cure? And thirdly, how is it different from homeopathy?
No, see, homeopathy is Ayurveda is more modern medicine oriented because we believe in physical substances, constituents, and concentration. So Ayurvedic medicines are based, its action base is dependent on how much concentration of the medicine or compound is there in the drug. Whereas homeopathy is based on dilution. So actually, you cannot detect any substance when the homeopathic medicine has been diluted to the requirement. There is no physical thing there. Whereas in Ayurveda, when you say it's a potent medicine, which means so much of alkaloid is present. So it is based on the idea of concentration and dose optimization. So that way, it is more in tune with Western logic of pharmacology. The only difference is we talk about multiple components instead of one chemical. Our drugs will have multiple components. And today we do not yet have the technology to understand how all these things interact together. That is one of the biggest impediment why a modern doctor is not willing to use Ayurvedic medicines. Because they say we don't know. We don't know the full ingredient list and we don't know how they will all act together. So they are ready. If you take one chemical and give them and characterize and say this is how it's going to work, they are happy to use it. So, if, for example, Chyawanprash, when you look at it as food, it's fine, it's amla lake. But if you look at it as medicine, the moment you say it is medicine, today we have to give a list of ingredients. What are the chemicals inside? There's a lot of vitamin C in that, but that's not it. There are antioxidants, there are many agents. And up to now, we have not been able to understand how all these work together. What is the optimal profile? So that is a mystery. To the extent that we know, we are talking about. Now this is also a kind of work in progress. We're beginning to understand that combining has effects. Rhizome cordialis and rhizome curcumae. So when you add it in a particular ratio, it has an efficacy. This is also mind boggling. How did they find the particular ratios in which the herbs should be added for it to get the optimum result? In CSIR unit in Trivandrum, one of the scientists, because we have a formulation called Amrutotaram Kashayam, in which 3 ingredients have to be added in a particular proportion. So that scientist, he made the formulation in different proportions and did their phytochemical profile. And he found that when we use the traditional ratio of adding the ingredients, you get a very unique phytochemical profile, which is optimal extraction of all the compounds from all the 3 ingredients at that proportion. So how did they know that? We do not know. So I also do not have answers. No, we have not. No, that is a problem because those texts got edited, expanded as Charaka Samhita. There was a text called Agnivesha Tantra, which came as one of the first textbooks of Ayurveda, but is no longer available to us. The Agnivesha Tantra got edited. Now, when you say Charaka Samhita, 600 BC, it's already an edited, advanced book. No, must have been there. Agnivesha Tantra is then in between text, which the text itself says. After the Vedas came Agnivesha Tantra, but Agnivesha Tantra has never been preserved intact. It got modified, edited, and converted to the Charaka Samhita. Because a lot of things were lost. The text says that many information was lost in that gap. So we do not know how Ayurveda really evolved from the Vedic period to the period of Charaka Samhita. What we have is so there's been enormous loss of literature. Enormous loss of literature. I mentioned yesterday also Bela Samhita has some information which you don't see in any of the other, Samhitas. So Ayurveda is a method of molecular combinatorics. And, new so we move from molecules to molecular cocktails and a science of molecular combinatorics. If you study Ayurveda, probably this is a new approach we could develop in the future, getting clues from the Ayurvedic tradition, develop new drugs which are combination of chemicals, which may be working in all these ways. That's something which our new scientific generation should take up. Pure Ayurveda practicing physicians may not think in this way. They just continue what is there in the tradition. So cooking changes properties. For example, cooking can change the flavor, aroma, and even the nutritional value. Heat releases essential oils. Then cooking alters the structural chemical composition of herbs, influencing their antioxidant activity. So taking all these factors into consideration, Ayurveda has always mentioned gentle cooking. Takes a little time, but then makes the cooking optimized. So whether you are using it fresh, whether you are using it dried, ground, boiling, frying, baking, everything will influence the final result. So some nutrients may be lost or degraded during cooking. Some cases, cooking increases the bioavailability or concentration of certain nutrients or phytochemicals. All these things, they have empirically understood this, or we don't know. The rishis have given us the final results without telling us the methods that they used in many of the cases. But if you look at it, they have been many times very precise. They have done very complex computations, and we are struggling to understand what was the method they used. Now, trituration. So, cooking another thing is, cooking, when you cook, the cell walls collapse. So, the nutrients are released and then it becomes easily assimilable. So, when you use an uncooked food, your digestive system has to struggle more to break it down and extract the nutrients. Now, garlic, for example, its active components, only when you crush it, it will become available. Pepper, if you powder and keep pepper for long, it will lose its properties. That is why traditionally we, make ground pepper fresh. Take pepper and then you have that thing. Ayurveda did not mention chilies because it came later during the colonial period. Yeah. Red chilies, I won't say that it is wrong, but we have lost a lot of medicinal properties of our foods by replacing pepper with chili. We could have added chili as another component because chili has a compound called capsaicin, which is having a lot of medicinal properties, including pain management and all that. But we have replaced it completely. So pepper has some unique properties, which now we are losing that advantage in our diet. So another thing is we used to triturate. Many processes are there of so trituration actually changes the molecular, the size, particle size, and then makes it more bioavailable and acting fast. So many such processes were used traditionally for making medicine. So to just summarize, what Ayurveda has found is that single herbs are harmful actually, are not to be taken alone. Teamwork is always the best. Combine things, process them, and then extract in the right solvent. So, all these things you can see in this brief discussion. Now, how do we use this? What does it mean to have an Ayurvedic treatment? It's a very logical thing. Ayurvedic treatment happens in 3 phases. Whatever disease it is, you come to an Ayurveda physician. The first thing is he wants to knock, he or she will knock you down. That is breaking down your system and reorganizing everything and then upgrading it. These are 3 steps. We call in Ayurveda as Lankhana, Brahmana, and Rasa. So you have configured yourself in a wrong way. Everything is haywire. Now I have to break it down. Break down what has gone wrong. It is like rebuilding your house. So every Ayurvedic treatment is a rebuilding of your system. For rebuilding, you have to break down things that are damaged. That process is called as Lankan. And rebuilding the system again is called Brahman. And the third step, upgrading to another level of functioning, is called Rasayan. So any good Ayurveda physician will treat you through these 3 phases. So the first phase, we will say you are now in the Langhana phase. So it's a reforming the body. This is the strict disciplining phase where you beat the system, you find out who are all the unruly organs, mechanisms, all the waste that has accumulated, remove, cleanse. Then rebuild, nourish the organs again. So the first step called Lankhana has 2 subdivisions called Shodhana and Shaman. So that is what I am looking at when the patient comes, okay, you have a disease and all those things are fine. And if there is something immediately be addressed, because patient has pain or so we'll address that. But what we are trying to do is a complete overhauling of the system. So for that, you do one is Shodhana or bio-cleansing. There are 5 major procedures. Because we believe that the body accumulates a lot of metabolic byproducts. Ayurveda doesn't call them exactly as toxins. They are wastes or unnecessary byproducts that you produce. I'll give some examples. And you have to cleanse your body out. That is causing a lot of stress in your system. So 5 procedures we use to eliminate them. Vamana, Virechana, vomiting, purging, enema, nasal cleansing. So there are 3 or 4 cavities in your system: the cranial cavity, thoracic cavity, abdominal cavity, and pelvic cavity. All these cavities are cleansed. And then you do Shamana. Now because you have cleansed your system, next step is to correct your metabolism. Now that is called Shamana. So Deepanam, Pachanam, these are 2 types of medicines which you give to activate your digestion metabolism so that all your metabolic pathways are corrected. And then Chutrit Vyayama Tapamaruta, that is restricted diet. Chut and Trit, bringing in hunger and thirst by restricting your dietary and fluid intake, reducing the load on the system. Then Vyayama, bringing exercise and activity. And then even exposure to wind and sun, all this is part of the Ayurvedic treatment to restore your metabolism. And once this is done, you go for Brahmana. Brahmana means so you deliver nutrition through medicines. So we mainly what we use are ghee. So in the first phase, we'll be using decoctions, arishtams, churnams. They are all very strong, harsh medicines. After that, in the nourishing phase, we will give lehyams and ghridam. Now, ghridam may be the reason why we give ghee is, they are lipophilic substances. So they can carry substances into the tissues, into the brain, and they nourish and enhance the system. So this is the second phase. And then finally we do rasayan, because that disease shouldn't come back again. Now your body system needs to be strengthened and upgraded. So all your tissues, organs, whichever is weak. So if you are having a weak heart problem, you give a rasayana for your heart. But only after correcting it. If you start with the rasayana, now this is the problem. A lot of people will say, okay, Chawanprash is good. You eat it, it will just go out as shit. That's all. It won't produce any damn effect on your system, because you have to first do Lankana and Brahmana, and then only when you take Rasana, it will produce a effect. That is the problem. So Ayurveda was created in a time where people had the luxury. So now, in chronic diseases, people are taking the time, because now they have reached a point where they have only those people come to us. If there is a quick fix, nobody will come to us. Or those people who now they feel now, okay, I want better health, I want an upgraded system, then only they will come. For others, modern medicine is the way. So Ayurveda is also just telling you this is the way of Ayurveda. It's up to you to decide whether you want it or not. If you have a value for overhauling your system, upgrading it, working at a higher level of efficiency, then there is something. We can, of course, using some, algorithms, we can reduce it to certain extent or extend it over, but you cannot completely make it very convenient, because Ayurveda is about changing the way you live your life. So when it comes to that point, you have to take a decision whether you really want to change the way of your life, or you cannot just do patchwork. Ayurveda means way of living. So the primary thing it is telling you is to change your way of life, and then only all the healing will happen. Now, ama is what? So one of the main things which Ayurveda says causes disease is ama, or metabolic stress, metabolic byproducts that initiate disease processes. And today there is something modern medicine is also talking about as age, advanced glycation end products. They can be formed in the body both endogenously and exogenously. Endogenous agents are produced within the body through non-enzymatic glycation of proteins and lipids with reducing sugars like glucose. And today we are producing ages internally and externally. The way we cook our food produces ages. Advanced, glycation end products, which will interfere with your metabolism and lead to so many diseases. So when you are doing Ayurvedic cleansing and metabolism correct problems, we are reversing and eliminating all these kind of products, which in those days they used to call as ama. There are a lot of concepts about that. I'm not going into that. So they can alter the structure and function of proteins and lipids, impair tissue function, how these kind of compounds affect your body. Oxidative stress, it can lead to inflammation, age-related diseases. So actually ages cause fast aging of your body. So when the name age means that you will age faster. And this is about how Ayurveda talks about internal medications and some frameworks for understanding. Now we will go to some external therapies. So Ayurvedic treatment consists of both internal medicines as well as external therapies. We work on the body. What Ayurveda says is an inside-out approach. Start internally and move externally. So the external therapies, uh, and some terms I wanted to clarify here. Panchakarma actually means 5 procedures done in sequence. It is an intervention. So if you just apply oil, it is not Panchakarma. Today there is a lot of misunderstanding. So Panchakarma means it's not possible to do actually Panchakarma today. You will need about 45 days to be in a hospital to actually do this entire process. Yeah. That is what I'm saying. It is not nothing to do with real Panchakarma. 3 days, no. Panchakarma is when you do 5 procedures in an elaborate way. You're completely rehauling your system. Correcting, identify. So there is a process called mobilization of all the metabolic wastes that takes at least 7 days. And then you have to precipitate it so that the body. So it's not simply taking a purgative or an emetic because it will lead to problems. If you forcefully cause vomiting or purgation, it will damage your intestines. It will affect your. So this is a very guided, systematic procedure. So Panchashodhana, 5 procedures of cleansing. And most of the time, what we are doing today cannot be called as Panchakarma. Sometimes Shodhana, we may give a mild purgation. It's only Shodhana, it is not Panchakarma. Panchakarma needs a particular hospital. You have to be hospitalized. And a lot of preparatory procedures, assessments have to be done. First, to check whether you are even fit to do Panchakarma. Because procedures like Vamana can sometimes go wrong. And it could lead to life-threatening situations. So what we say is Panchakarma is done only if there is a very overwhelming accumulation of these kind of metabolic byproducts in your system. We call that as Bahuama. And if treatment doesn't respond to the Shamana methods, where you have tried to correct it through other methodologies, if it doesn't respond, and if the disease is quite chronic and then the patient has strength, this is very important. Many of us cannot withstand the whole procedure of Panchakarma. And we go through a lot of purva karmas. There are preparatory procedures. You cannot do panchakarma, you just cannot have a walk-in panchakarma. It's not possible. So there is kindling the digestive fire, digesting the ama, internal, external oleation, fermentation. Many procedures are there before you are found ready to be given that cleansing procedure. Then the prathana karmas, you may be cleansed by a vomiting procedure or a purgation or a medicated enema or nasal purge. Even controlled bloodletting is one of the ways in which you cleanse the system. Then we have post-operative procedures. You cannot go back to your routine activity in a day. It will take some time before the body is rehabilitated. If you really look at it, once in a while, at least few times in a life, if you take this break and do this, it will have rich dividends, because otherwise what we are happening is we are going into a crash landing, not having the time to take care of our health, but eventually at one point we become completely debilitated. So even for that time that you spend 45 days or something, it will have good consequences because you save a lot of time in the future. Therapies may be preventive, promotive, or curative. So many things are there which you are using daily. Now, Ayurveda has this concept of medicated smoke also, which right now is a bit controversial. As per modern understanding, smoke is harmful. So even our agarbatis that we use, they do produce carcinogenic substances. But in Ayurveda, the exposures are very, very limited. Just one puff to clear your nose after a treatment or something. But we need to study them. So I'm not recommending smoke publicly. It's not, of course, tobacco. Ayurveda never mentioned the tobacco smoking was not prevalent in those times. It came much later in Ayurveda. These are usually the medicated aromatic smokes. Fumigating the rooms. Now, fumigation is still practiced, but the only problem is you shouldn't be inside the room when the fumigation is happening. And you must make sure the smoke. So they produce these PM 2.5, particulate matter, which can enter into your lungs and cause damage. I've also seen actually some priests who are continuously doing these homas and all that, getting cardiorespiratory problems. So it cannot, you have to be a bit careful about that. But on the other hand, smoke is also another way in which many volatile compounds and active principles are released from drugs and substances. So right now, for me, it is a matter of research. But maybe there are safer ways in introducing this as volatile, sprays or things like that. Because in Charaka Samhita, they are talking about aerosol delivery of drugs. Charaka Samhita says if you are a king or a very VIP person, the physician has to be careful. In those days, the king is not pleased. They may cut your head also. So in Ayurveda, drugs were delivered through flowers. The flower is sprayed with the drug, and you go to a king and give him a very beautiful aromatic flower and say, please smell this. And just smelling is enough for the medicine to act on the system. So they were also looking at innovations. And so when you look at smoke, it only means that, it's a kind of aerosol delivery where you are delivering it through your respiratory system. Today also, right now, you've heard of oral insulin, inhaled insulin. These kind of concepts are coming in modern medicine also. So if you look at it from that perspective, you get a lot of interesting clues on how drugs could be delivered in different ways. Now, these are the 5 therapeutic procedures called Vamana, Virechana, Kashaya Vasti, Anuvasana Vasti, and Nasya. Now, in Vasti, we have a decoction enema as well as oil enema. They are to be alternatively administered. And just for interest, there was a study done at KEM Hospital in Mumbai, when Dr. Urmila Thatte, she's a modern pharmacologist, and her studies revealed that Vasti seems to have a immunomodulating effect. That experimental study said that by so one many reasons are there. Your gut is a nervous system. So when you administer drugs through this, one of the theories is that it stimulates a lot of receptors, and that creates a lot of neuroregulational, responses from the system. Another theory, yeah. Another theory is that uh, Vasti may be changing the gut microbiome. Yet another theory is that Vasti may be delivering a lot of medicines through the intestines because they also absorb, they are also one of the ways in which you can deliver drugs. Some of our studies we have seen in our institute also. When you, for example, if you give Nasya or when you administer medicine through the nostrils, after a few hours, if you take blood samples from the patient, and when we run LCMS, we can see the compounds from the medicine has actually reached the bloodstream. Same thing through Vasti also. Now, there is a very common Ayurvedic treatment, Abhyanga or oil massage. So, this is one of the main things of massage is that it improves circulation and tones up muscles. So, this is very good. Most of us today have a lot of problems, sitting. Many of our organs don't get enough blood supply. And so, regular massage actually makes. So, we also, in Ayurveda, it's not just about circulation. We talk, that's a different ontological category altogether called prana. The pranic energy should be moving in all parts of the body. And massage is a very specialized thing. There are points to press, there are methods, patterns of how you do it. And so it's a very specialized thing. So many benefits today, science has found it can reduce stress and anxiety. It improves circulation. It is even enhancing immunity. It clears, lymphatic drainage is enhanced. These things, when it becomes sluggish, it can produce a lot of problems. It improves sleep. This is one very important thing. Soft tissue injury recovery is possible through massage, joint flexibility, and there are also indications that massage can reduce fatigue, improve mental alertness, and gives general sense of. So there are many other specialized methods. One of the interesting things is Shirodhara, which has been studied a lot even outside India. So this is what you do: is you drip oil continuously on your forehead, and then it produces a very deep state of relaxation. Calms the mind, reduces stress, improves sleep. It's effective in anxiety, insomnia, and hypertension. And I want to show you few decades back actually, and I was able to interact with this scientist from Japan. His name is a doctor. His name is Kazuo Uibaba. So he came to India, studied about Shirodhara, and he developed a robo which can administer Shirodhara in a very controlled way, controlling the temperature, the flow. And he also created a biofeedback system which will measure what is happening to your body when Shirodhara is administered. And he found that as you do Shirodhara, your parasympathetic nervous system gets activated. Your body and mind go into a deep state of relaxation, and then your body is able to self repair itself. And he also found that Shirodhara itself can induce what is called as altered states of consciousness. So it is able to elevate your mind to a higher level of function. So altered states of consciousness. There are many ways in which oil is administered. This is called spiritual. This requires human. So there is another theory that human touch, then transmission of prana from the healer to the. All these theories are also there. All of them are not completely, as you cannot assess them through modern scientific parameters, but many of them are experiential. And we have noticed that if the therapist, for example, if he has ama in the system, he is in a disturbed state, he can transmit that also to the. So there are many ideas that the therapist should also follow a particular lifestyle. We encourage the therapist to pray and prepare themselves and create that pranic energy also, which is transmitted to the patient. Touch is already well studied. That touch therapy has a lot of impact on the system. So all these therapies, deep cleansing, rejuvenation, improved circulation and metabolism, relief, so they are supportive. So no disease can be cured with these external therapies, but they help you in the overall process of rehabilitation and recovery. It completes that recovery process. The real treatment is what we discussed earlier with all the strong medicines, the breaking down, building up. But in that process, when you add these external therapies, the healing becomes much more complete. So this is the. So now we come to the last part of our discussion. I wanted to share some case studies. Huh? Yeah, it's a difficult question to answer because, as I told you, there is clear indication that knowledge had progressed. New diseases were described, new medicines were developed, many new theories were created. But these acharyas did not clearly spell out exactly the methodologies they used to advance this knowledge. We have the pramanas, as I told you, pratyaksha, observation, drawing inferences, validating. Those general methodologies are mentioned. But today, when you do a research and discover some new knowledge, you publish a paper. Each individual study is published. So you can look at it and understand how that researcher developed this knowledge. But in olden days, what happens is only the findings and the final things it is very prescriptive. Ayurvedic textbooks are very prescriptive because it was difficult for them to create that kind of literature. No, no, true. That is modern science in modern times. Uh, you are talking about very modern time, the origin of modern science. From that time, we do have documentation. But we are talking about a knowledge system which propagated itself through oral transmission. Yeah, there also many of the methods are not clear. Even in the ancient world, like for example, he would say, I gave this medicine, this is what I observed. On the 40th day, the patient died. So individual observations are seen sometimes in the Greek tradition, but in Ayurveda, it is very consolidated. The Samhita is created by compiling all the information that is available at that time and what has been tested, and which is kind of a prescriptive knowledge only, that has been documented. So yeah, everywhere until modern times, we did not we did not have that kind of publishing each and every study, that giving a trail of how a new plant was. That is not seen in Ayurvedic tradition. But having said that, what I feel is that a lot of such clues we may get if we study the available literature more deeply. Today, 5 to 10%, what the textbooks that we are studying right now, those are the ones which are kind of systematic reviews. Have you heard of the concept of a systematic review? That it looks at all available literature, knowledge, then does a kind of a quality check assessment, and then gives you the consolidated outcomes of what were the findings. So if you look at Charaka or Sushruta or Vagbhada, they all say we have examined all the available knowledge and then we have come to a consensus, and you tell this is the best evidence on which we can work. That is how the textbooks were created. Now there are so many individual kind of literature that has been created, out of which the Samhitas were created in the first place. Those literatures have not been studied. They are languishing in libraries, they are languishing in the personal connection, collection of people. So maybe if you start looking at all that literature, we may get a little bit more clue about how those individual explorations were done and how they arrived at these kind of conclusions, which they have then given in the form of the Samhitas. The text, what they are all talking about is knowledge is so vast, so many people have worked on it. And as a practitioner, Ayurvedic textbooks are for the general practitioner who doesn't have to worry. They just need to know what is established knowledge, how can we use it to solve a problem. So that is the form in which the Samhitas are available. So it's very difficult to trace back and understand. Even when we are taught in Ayurveda colleges, we are taught to become clinicians. Yeah. Yeah, even forward, that's what I'm saying. We do see the Ashtanga Hridaya, for example, it was a systematic review and it became a major textbook in Ayurveda. It says that it has examined hundreds and thousands of texts before creating this work. Individual works of individual Vaidyas, what they concluded. And then it has come to a conclusion as to what are the things that are tested and valid, so that a clinician needs a confidence that, see, today we call in modern medicine the concept of Cochrane review. Cochrane review is a guideline for a clinician to decide what evidence they should use in their clinical practice. But a Cochrane review is created through a process what you call as Cochrane collaboration. Hundreds of researchers all over the world collaborate together. They create a protocol. They look at all existing evidence and then they give a guideline saying this is what you should follow in this disease. Now, Ayurvedic textbooks were created. I won't say it is the same method as a Cochrane collaboration or Cochrane review, but it was also created through a review process. Now, what is missing is that protocol or that process we don't have. What we have only is the outcome. Is that clear? We we don't have that protocol. We To a great extent, we can try to look at all this literature, see how it evolved. Many historians have attempted to do that. After this textbook, what was the new knowledge that came? How was it validated? Those things, we have to join the dots. What we have is only scattered information. Yeah. Yeah, many see Vagbada and Ashtanga Hridaya talks about many other textbooks which were available at his time, but today it is not even traceable. We have lost a lot of literature. No, no, writing was there because many samhitas are named in these old texts which are not available now. So what we get are some extracts from. So commentators will say from this textbook, here is a quote. We get the name of the textbook, but the text is not available. I hope you are aware that we suffered a lot of loss and destruction of our manuscripts. Many of our university libraries were completely kind of burnt down. So when you look at our literature, what we are able to see is that uh, the loss of that knowledge is quite evident. There is no way we can retrieve it. So, what I am thinking about is that we have got these theories, we have got these conclusions, use them as new hypotheses, work back and try to prove them. Instead of, I mean, it may be a very difficult exercise to exactly find out how our ancients arrived at all these. That's probably that is what you are asking. How did they arrive at all these conclusions? They have given some broad methodologies. In the first day itself, I talked about how knowledge creation, validation happened. So the broad methodologies are very much there, which means they observed things. Then they looked at inferences, cause effect relationships. They wanted to prove, like for example, just because one medicine worked in one person, they didn't accept it. They needed a cause effect anumana, saying that it will repeatedly produce the same effect in that same condition. So those methodologies are broadly described, but like today, for every scientific discovery, we have a research publication. The methodology is explained, the data collected is presented, conclusions drawn, then it is peer reviewed. That kind of a system was not there in those. No journal, no research journal I could find. There are only final systematic reviews, samhitas, which they say now, okay, these are all verified. So there was a peer review process. Charaka Samhita says that any scientific information that you are presenting to a larger community should be verified by a group of experts. So they had meetings, discussions where the person who is the author has to make a presentation before a peer committee, and they will review all that. And when they say yes, this is acceptable, that is the first test. Second test is it should survive the test of time. Whether people will, how long will people actually use it in a successful manner? So these two tests were there for knowledge to be accepted. One was a peer review for immediate release. The second is what today we call as post publication review or actual citation and use. Yeah, how really society uses it. So Charaka, Sushruta, Vagbhada, these were the texts that got accepted by the community of the physicians. They found to be most successful. Some others may have got a very high rating at peer review, but in actual use, they went into disuse. Bela, and these examples are also given. Is that okay? So now I am going to case studies, a few things, many. Now, this is one experience that I had. I'm starting with some very light things. How sometimes, you discover the potential of Ayurveda. In the United States, this was in the 2000s when I was working in Tamil Nadu, Coimbatore. Uh, the PBS, Public Broadcasting Service. Have you heard of that? It's a very premium service, channel in the United States. It carries very authentic stories for public awareness and public education. The PBS channel decided to do a story on Ayurveda, because at that time many Americans were turning towards Ayurveda. So they wanted to educate the public about what is good and bad in Ayurveda. So one of the journalists from US, Tom Reed, he was entrusted with the task of coming to India and doing a story on Ayurveda. He came to India, went to many Ayurveda institutions, and everywhere they did not cooperate for one reason, because Tom Reed said, see, I don't want to do a normal story, coming and interviewing you and you tell blah 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 and I go and write. No, I'm an investigative journalist, so I want to do an investigation. So what was the problem? See, he was in army, reporting in the army, and he was injured, and his I think right shoulder is completely frozen. He cannot move his hand; it only moves so much. So what he said is that I want to treat myself in your facility, and depending on how I improve, I will go back and report to my American citizens whether Ayurveda works or not. So most of the Ayurvedic institutions hesitated. They did not agree. So it was at that time that somebody referred my name. And I was very excited. I thought it's a good time to test Ayurveda, because at that time I was also, I think I told you, there was one time when I wanted to disprove Ayurveda, because I got so frustrated with the system learning. I thought if it is not useful, it should be stopped. This course also should be stopped. So whenever I get a chance to test Ayurveda, I used to be very enthusiastic about this. So so uh, so T.R. Reed, he came, and then he came to our institution, and my colleague, Dr. Ravindran, he is a medical director. I told him, see, this is the situation. And we were a good combination. I was a little skeptic, but he was a strong believer. So he said, why not? He has no doubt that Ayurveda will not work. So he said, let us take up the challenge. We invite him. We will treat him. And then I did a review. I asked him, what is your problem? He said, see, my hand, I cannot move. So he showed me. I still remember that conversation in my room. And it has been like that for 25 years. And modern doctors say only a prosthesis is possible, means a replacement. That has got a lot of challenges, nerve damage. So he didn't want that. So then I asked him, is it fair? 25 years you come from America, where you have access to the latest medical technologies, and you know something you couldn't solve for 25 years. You want Ayurveda to fix it all of a sudden? Is it even fair? So then I asked him, how many days you? He said 2 weeks. So he threw us a challenge, saying what he couldn't do any damn thing about it for 25 years, he want us to fix in 2 weeks. So I asked him, is it fair? Are you should be fair when you are challenging Ayurveda. He said, see, I'm not expecting a cure. I'm expecting a change that will convince me that Ayurveda works. So our medical director said, fine, let us call him. Sorry. And okay, so if you type Google frontline world, India, a second opinion, you will get this story. It is still documented, the interview, everything. There was a video, but that is playable on the old flash player. So now the website cannot play that video, but that video was very interesting. I have uploaded it on YouTube. If any one of you interested to watch it, I can share the YouTube link, but because original link doesn't work. And so we started treating him. And I told our medical director, let us do some mischief, give him all our nasty treatments, what he needs and also does not need. So, because he's challenging us. So he had a horrible time. He tells in his interview, my family does not know what it means to be an investigative journalist. So we gave him all medications through all the holes in his body. We injected Ayurvedic medicines. And he had a terrible time. But we did. But what was amazing is that after 25 years, after 14 days of Ayurvedic treatment, for the first time in his life, he was able to comb his hair. He was able to lift his arm completely and comb his hair. And he mentions that Ayurveda is up to something. And he frankly said, at this age, I cannot continue this treatment in India. Of course, it is also challenging to complete the Ayurvedic treatment. But he leaves on a note saying that I'm sure that if I stayed for some more time and continued this treatment, my arm would be much, much more functional. So here is Ayurveda giving another. The whole story is India a second opinion, where modern medicine has nothing else to do but give a prosthetic replacement. And here is Ayurveda. Yesterday, I was listening. Unfortunately, that video is in Malayalam, so I cannot. An allopathic doctor in Kerala, she's a gynecologist, and she has been finding. So finally, she has come out in the open and revealed her experience, saying, infertility, in cases of infertility, how many times, with the help of Ayurveda, she has been able to consistently help people, couple get a child. So it is a combination that after they try IVF, it fails. Again and again, it fails. But when you do an Ayurvedic treatment and then sometimes even without IVF, or next time when they do IVF, it is successful. So she has been observing this for last many years. So what I'm saying, these case studies, I mean, they are not always so rigorously or scientifically documented, but they give us a clue of the possibility of what Ayurveda can do. Because today we have unmet needs and treatment gaps. Now, this is a clear example of a treatment gap. This is not a scientific study, that's why I'm calling it as a case study, but it is documented, it has come from an authentic source. Here is a journalist who wanted actually to disprove Ayurveda. So there is no bias there, but then he comes here, gets an experience, and then he records it and leaves a trail. Now, this is a video. This is something which I documented myself. Traditional snake poison healer. These things are now by law banned. So after that time, the whole system stopped because modern medicine, once anti-venom, everything got established. Now it is illegal to do any traditional treatment of snake poison. This video was taken in the 90s when I was a student, where in many remote villages of Kerala, it was not possible to access, modern healthcare. So traditional physicians would do it. So here is a person who was bitten by a crate. Crate is a very poisonous snake. So he had seen the snake and he was brought to the Vaidya. Now, the interesting thing is, I was intrigued by how simple the healthcare delivery system was. Today, if you get a snake bite, you will be taken to an ICU, and for many days, nobody will see you. And sometimes you may not come out also, alive. That's true. I mean, I'm not saying antivenom doesn't work, because snake poison, you can never be sure, even traditionally or modern, a lot of cases may actually succumb. But here, what happens is the Vaidya's courtyard is the emergency room. So everybody comes as the patient comes in. So it's a community participation. They created a people-oriented healthcare system. The neighbors would come running. They would have all the herbs that are necessary. The moment a snake bite victim comes to the place, the whole community is ready. So one person already makes that herb, he starts grinding it, another person, and by the time the patient is examined and kept ready, all these people are there. And do you know where the patient lies? Patient lies on the lap of their own relatives. That is the ICU. There is no paraphernalia, nothing. So that is what you can see here, this video. And what they first do is they apply some medicine in the eyes. Then you blow some medicine in the nose, reviving the patient. The patient becomes conscious. I don't know. We still do not know what all this means. Some medicines are entering into the bloodstream because the eye is a mucous membrane. It can absorb a lot of medicine, quickly deliver to the bloodstream. The nose is also another medium through which you can. So in the time when they did not have injections, in certain emergency situations, they would make a small injury on the scalp and then apply medicines. These were the systems that they used to deliver the medicine quickly. Then, as the patient becomes a little conscious, they gave a lehium, which is a kind of a medicated jam, and ask the patient, what is the taste you are feeling? So, depending on the taste the patient experiences, they diagnose what type of snake it is. So, if I have tasted that lehium, it is actually very bitter. But I've seen a lot of patients saying it is pungent or it is sweet, or it is sour. So if it is sour, they say that it is, what do you say, this viper. If it is pungent, it will be cobra. And if it is sweet, it will be crate. So this medicine itself is an antidote for the snake venom. And then once they get this feedback from the patient, they give a medication which is very specific. And the whole thing lasted for about 45-50 minutes. And the patient got up and went home. So you can see this. Let me see if it, yeah, yes, so just a second. So this is a very old video. It is on YouTube, so you cannot. So can you see his paralysis of the neck muscles? The neck is, falling down. Now they are applying medicines in the eye, then blowing the medicine into the nose to revive. So this is at the end of 45 minutes. He's okay. And they just prescribe some diet and say you come after 1 week. So this is the way now there are many questions here. See, one is modern doctors I discussed with. This one thing they say, we don't know whether, many times we don't know whether what snake bit. All snakes may not be poison. Even when poisonous snakes bite, there may not be envenomation because the poison may not be injected. Sometimes because of fear, the patient may lose consciousness, it may not be. So many factors are there. So I'm not making any claim as of now. I do not have enough evidence to show whether this was a real. But if you look at the circumstantial thing, in this case, they knew that it was a crate, and crate is a very poisonous snake. And if you carefully observe the patient, it is not just fear. He was clearly showing signs of neck muscle paralysis. He's not able to hold. So many of those symptoms match the clinical signs of. But this opens up to the possibility of a lot of research. Now, these medicines should be explored. Maybe there are some interesting combinations with which we could develop new antidotes for poison, especially this lechium, which creates different taste sensations, which means that when the venom spreads up to the tongue, and when you give that medicine, there is some interaction and it changes the taste sense. So some chemical. So these are all interesting aspects, that deserve some exploration and research. Now you can see some things are ingenious. This is a surgery done on the eye. With what? A hibiscus bud. The hibiscus bud is the surgical instrument. What they found was that bud has the right kind of consistency with which you can scrape the inner eyelid without damaging the skin so this was a very successful practice. Hibiscus bud as a surgical instrument. So this is also I was able to observe and document. Many of these practices are completely gone. surgical procedure, there was an eye problem which was continuously recurring. And with modern medications, it was just healing and coming back again. So it was kind of a boil in the inside of the eye. So according to Ayurveda, when you clean that place and do what we call as Rakta Moksha, there won't be recurrence. So this was a minor surgical procedure that was done in Ayurveda. Instead of just suppressing that boil, or just removing the pus. Yes, inside. So that was completely cleaned through this process. And after this process, there was no recurrence anymore. Recover it. This is the eye. This portion heals. It's not a deep injury, because it's a very vascular region. When you work on that, you will see a lot of blood coming, but it's nothing. She recovered. In fact, immediately after the procedure, that video part is missing. We interviewed her also. She was speaking. Most of these things, in today we are talking about doing surgery and walking out of the hospital the same day. Most of these procedures were done in that fashion. It is done. See, in when the Britishers came to India, the Potter community was doing nasal reconstruction surgery in a shed. So all these procedures were made so simple, so easy. Just walk in, get it done, and walk out. So even that snake poison, it's very, with a lot of community participation, they made the technology available to the people and very cost effective, using natural substances in your surrounding. That kind of a system was there. I don't say that these we can go back to these models now, but they show. Yeah, okay. This is about marma. So this is a marma expert showing the power of marma points. Demonstrating is on a goat, because it is risky to work on humans, and today there is no protection of laws. You can see this is a goat. So he's pressing some marma points, and the goat will become paralyzed now. It cannot move. So it's possible to do that on humans also. Who want to paralyze someone? And you can also, and then you do the opposite, the goat just comes back. Now you are going to make it unconscious. First is making it paralyzed, the second is making it unconscious. So probably when they did surgeries and all that in those days, marma was part of the surgical tradition. They might have used some of these procedures. It just goes to sleep. And then it is immediately woken up by just pressing on the wheel. So anesthesia means you will take a long time to recover. So if this kind of anesthesia was available, waking up from a surgery would have been so easy. Okay, so these are some remnants of such practices, and it is now not possible for us to go back to many of these things. I mean, you can never imagine snake poison being treated in the courtyard of, a house, or taking hibiscus bud and rose buds and doing surgery. Is not possible today. But the thing is, there are many things in these that require attention, and which could give clues for discovering new interventions. But their idea of instant, very quick, recovery, and making the patient ambulant again, those kinds of concepts were there. Now, this is the story I was mentioning yesterday. It's about, a allopathic neurologist is narrating how a patient who had very bad bed sores, couldn't be treated with any of the antibiotics, grafting, nothing, and they had to leave him to a uh, you know home care, and there he went to an Ayurveda physician. So 6 months of failure, and 1.5 months the wound began to heal. Healthy granulation tissue, no antibiotics, nothing. So this is again a document. The doctor actually says, "I am confused. I don't know what is happening." He still does not say that he believes in Ayurveda. He says that it is unexpected. So this is an interview with him.
I'm Dr. Hari Prasad, neurologist working at the Institute of Medical Science and Research Center, Kochi. I am going to tell about the patient, Mr. Ravindra. Ravindra is a 45-year-old man. He is suffering from chronic neurodegenerative disorder. That's why the diagnosis is still not clear. Initially, he presented with a progressive cognitive decline, refractory seizures, dystonia, and chorea. And for the last 3 to 4 years, he is bedridden, almost in vegetative state. We have done extensive workup, including the genetic screening, like a TNR sequencing. Still, the diagnosis is not clear. The seizures are fairly under control with antibiotics, and his movement disorders are under control. And now he continues to be in vegetative state. Depends on the cultural sensitivity. Many times we change the antibiotics, yet the ulcer continues to grow in bigger size. Knowledge there will be forcefully discharged to the ulcer with a deep, thick, bluish stuff. So, after almost trying for 6 months, he lost hope of controlling this medicine in our system of management. And the burden posed by the care of this medicine was so enormous on the relatives. Patient was discharged in our primary care. The patient was back to home. In the house, the patient was seen by an Ayurvedic physician, and he started his own mode of treatment. And I'm very trying to give my opinion that after his treatment, around about 1 to 1.5 months, the really started reducing the size, and the granulation tissue is grown. When discharge is disappeared, the yellowish slough also was gone. And now the width of the ulcer, the depth of the ulcer is significantly reduced. Exactly the changes. This is one the process of discharge is yeah. And then the granulation usually discharges is to also from the very false smelling was significantly come down. But it is not as healthy and considered with the surgeons. Even they are considered with the plastic surgeons. Now almost all of them opine that when surgery is out of questioning because of this extensive wound and it's easy. Yeah. This is because always when we do the cultural sensitivity, it always used to be positive. And almost the body is seeing the all the wants are seen. So they said they yeah, what he actually of his extensive wound and it's easy. Yeah. This is because grafting is because always when we do the cultural sensitivity, it always used to be positive. And almost the body is seeing the all the wants are seen. They said that yeah, what he actually body is not visible. This actually there are no conditions which might get cured by practice other than medicine. Yeah. And Ayurvedic treatment most often gets dismissed as spontaneous remission or self-limiting. Yeah. You see that this condition would fall under any of those categories. Spontaneous remission or the body is concerned, yes, this makes a remarkable difference. I am basically a person who is skeptical about Ayurvedic medicine. After seeing this, I am really confused. I don't know really what is that. Yes, we are not only Indian medicine. Yes.
So, so it's a long video, so I just cut it short. But you can see that what this video is telling us is that there are many instances. That is what we are seeing through many such instances, that where there are severe treatment gaps and there is a lot of economic burden, suffering for the patient or their family. Sometimes Ayurvedic interventions are producing amazing outcomes, but these are not well studied. These are not well documented, and that is where we need, because this Ayurveda survived as a living tradition, and that's the only reason why it is still there. See, somehow that living practice did not stop. See, Ayurveda is just in the survival mode. There is no research, there is no concerted efforts to revive the system, build upon its strengths. Out of the whole IK stream, Ayurveda is the only system which is living, but it is living in a very, very, what you can say, uh, very limited, very, inhibited form. So when, even though there are many such success stories, we are not able to really build upon them, create protocols, or go deep into it and come up with interventions that can be scaled up and brought to the benefit of the general public. So that is a gap also that we understand when we look at these. Now there is another story on the net. It's My Indian Doctor. It's a story of a French woman who was diagnosed with breast cancer. And this, if you type My Indian Doctor and Simon Brook, and maybe the French oncologist's name, what is this, Thomas, you will get this thing. There's a video also. This video is also available. You can go through the whole documentary. So this French lady developed breast cancer. She was promptly treated, operated, completed her treatment, but unfortunately, her cancer returned. And next time when she went back to her oncologist, they said, we cannot help, it has recurred. So she became very upset. She says she threw her case record in the face of her oncologist and walked out. And she decided to come to India. She did not know why. Somehow she thought she will come to India. And while she was sitting in the flight, the passenger sitting next to her was also, had come to India many times. And that passenger engaged her forcefully in a conversation. She was not in a mood to converse because she was wanted to withdraw herself. She thought she'll come to some ashram in India and spend her final days and pass away. But this co-passenger going on asking her, what is your problem? What finally she had to say. And then it so happened that a co-passenger was a leukemia patient who had come to India, went to ashram and Ayurvedic center and had got healed. So when she heard that from the co-passenger, said, this is destiny. Maybe this is where I have to go. And she came to this place. This is the spiritual healer who gave her spiritual treatment and Ayurvedic treatment. She came to India, spent some time. So her name is Marinella Banfi. And the doctor's name is Professor Thomas Turs. He's a very famous oncologist from France. And it so happened that she got cured. And she went back to France and went to her oncologist and asked for an appointment. The oncologist, she says, nearly jumped out of his chair. He thought he was seeing a ghost. So he said, "You are still alive. You should have been dead long back." Because according to modern medicine, the prognosis was so bad, you wouldn't have survived. So she said, "Not only have I survived, I'm free of the cancer." So this oncologist became so intrigued that he took the trouble to come all the way to India, and he made a documentary saying that he wanted the world to know that there are always some alternatives. So he said he still does not fully believe in Ayurveda, but this one experience of his patient has opened his mind to explore alternative approaches. So these are the kind of stories that we are seeing now and then, but we are not able to produce the kind of evidence that will convince us, okay, this is a way. So sometimes it happens, and that is the current state, but these case studies are very compelling and impelling. And I hope that it will actually encourage more people to look into Ayurveda. And I want to show one initiative that we have done at our institute. This website is at this point of time not available for the public. It is actually called ayurcell.org, which is a collection of case studies in the field of Ayurveda. So we have 100 cases now, and we are in the process of compiling more and more such cases to create a huge database, which will tell the world, which will give a narrative of all the interesting things that are happening in the field of Ayurvedic practice. This is done rigorously. So in this Ayurcell, we have is a clinical case repository. So you can see here we have made it in such a way that if you want to listen to a case, you can watch. These are video narratives. These are audio narratives. If you want to listen, you can listen to these cases. If you want to see in the form of graphical abstracts, each case is presented as a graphical abstract. So about 100 cases are there now. These kind of stories, but they are not rigorous, but these case reports are rigorous. We follow what is called as the care guide. We are almost completed. So you can see these are graphs, graphical abstracts. If you click on one, it will give you a quick idea of what happened in that case. And then you can also actually search. Here are the allopathic diagnosis. You can pick up any particular case you want to know, and then you will get a detailed of that. Here, then abstract summaries, timeline, tabulated summary, the whole narrative as a. So this kind of resources are being created, and after some more curation and validation, we are planning to open it to the general public also. Right now it is accessible only to the Ayurvedic community. You need to be an Ayurveda student or an Ayurveda practitioner to get registered on this portal, because right now we don't want to share information publicly which is not fully validated. Now, the last thing I want to show you is a case of Parkinson's. Which was one of my patients, and I want to show you how sometimes Ayurvedic thinking, is giving. See, Parkinson's is a disease of the brain, right? The brain cells are damaged, body cannot produce dopamine, then you get these symptoms. And L-Dopa or levodopa is one of the medicines which is used to control these symptoms. But now modern medicine is also so this is I'm going to show some personal information. I would prefer it not to be recorded or transmitted. So is this being recorded? Yes. Okay, so maybe I will make a request that this portion is, you please make sure, because it is sensitive. Yeah, patient details. So you can see here, this is a patient of Parkinson's, and this is called as pill rolling. So even when they are, he's completely bedridden, and he continuously, his hands will move like this. It's called as a pill rolling, tremor. So you can go on doing that. He's actually not awake also, but still this happens. See, this was a condition when he came to our hospital. And here you can see we are trying to make him walk. If he does not have a support, he will just collapse and fall down. And this is a very advanced stage of Parkinson's actually. They're very difficult to reverse from this stage. And then you can see here, we're trying to make him stand. But can you see, he's almost collapsing. The moment you let go of the support, so what we did in this case is, according to Ayurveda, Parkinson's should start in the gut. So the treatment that we gave was for the gut. We did not do anything for the brain. And you can see the result of this treatment. This is also very difficult. He's still not able to walk. But now you can see him. He's walking. So this is not an outcome that's normally possible in Parkinson's. So this was in 40 days, just 40 days. So Parkinson's is such a chronic disease, and you would expect you would need years of treatment to reverse. But in 40 days, the patient starts walking. And you can see he comes to our clinic. Now he's walking on his own. No tremors. So these are, no, he's very old. He's not fully functional, but the thing is, he's managing on his own now. He doesn't need the support, or is not complete. Otherwise, as you can see, he was just bedridden. You have to lift him, make him sit, feed him, take him, you know, take him to the toilet. Everything he was dependent. Now he was able to walk on his own. So this is the thing. I think our time is also up. I'd like to stop here.